We'll go ahead and just get started, and we'll go ahead and have comments from a number of people, and then time for any particular questions or follow-up. I mean, we're just really grateful to have the lake back below flood stage. It's been an extraordinary few months. There's a tremendous amount of work still ahead for a lot of individuals and businesses and towns, but the response from everybody involved has just been exceptional. Patience of Vermonters, their efforts, the fact they've come together so well, it's just fantastic. And now we're sitting here with a lake that's pretty much back to normal, ready to play. The marina's open with a lot of empty slips, and just like people to get out and have a good time, work hard, get recovered, and play hard out in the water. So I'll start off with Secretary Searles to talk about some of the efforts of the Agency of Transportation.
Thank you, Lawrence. My point of my couple of minutes here will be to tell you that Vermont's transportation system is open and ready for summer travel. I was looking a little while ago. If you watch closely enough, you can see the lake receding. It's happening. And I don't want to dwell on the past couple of months too long, but I think if you allow me a minute to kind of wrap up on where we've been the last couple of months in terms of transportation. This event began about April 23rd for us up in Lamoille County with the first flooding event, a shorter one. Followed by many others, preceded by third snowiest winter in the state's history. Then it got warm, and then it rained, and you know the rest. We had short and long flooding events, which resulted over a period of time, since April 23rd, in 36 road closures throughout the state of Vermont on the state system. And the number for the local system is undoubtedly much higher. We're very proud of the fact that during all of this, the Lake Champlain Islands remained open, but that wasn't easy. The damage to highway and related facilities is now somewhere between 16 and 18 million. It's going to go up. We don't know the total, and won't until the lake comes down a little bit more, and we're able to consider what it's going to take to implement permanent repair. Here's the good news. All state roads are now open. Ferries on Lake Champlain between Chimney Point, Crown Point, Shoreham and Ticonderoga, Grand Isle and Cumberland Head are all open. Other service will be restored, and the service here will start, I hope, very soon. We did have some railroad implications. 3 flooded sections of railroad over on the Connecticut River line are now open. And recreation trails, which are so important to summers here in Vermont, did sustain some damage in different places, but I know, for instance, here in Burlington, Parks and Rec is working very hard to restore as much of that bike path as possible, and that's happening in other places in the state. This couldn't have happened without the stellar work of V-Trans maintenance crews, who we're very proud of, but also literally hundreds of people from the private sector, people in the construction business, the quarrying business, the trucking business. So we're very thankful to them. I encourage everybody to travel and enjoy this summer in Vermont. And while you do, please remember that some of the surfaces on roads are still showing some damage from the weather conditions all through the winter and spring. The same people who normally repair those during the spring are the ones who were responding to the flooding. So they're about 6 weeks behind, but we will get to them. There are also construction zones out there, and we encourage everybody to drive carefully and not put our workers or their own lives in jeopardy.
And Secretary Markowitz is going to talk about water quality issues and some of the aspects that are evolving.
Thank you. Actually, before I talk about water quality, let me just tell folks, our state parks are open. We've got a couple who are still closed, Sandbar and Silk, but the rest of Vermont state parks are open, and we're getting great attendance. I encourage folks to come out and enjoy the parks. They're yours, places to camp and swim. And I also want to acknowledge the staff in our state parks department. We had tremendous challenges from the floods and damages, and they've stepped up to make sure that they're ready for you and open as the season begins. So come out and enjoy the state parks. It's a great way to enjoy Vermont. One of the things I do as the Secretary at the Agency of Natural Resources is I make sure that our waters are safe to swim in. And I'm happy to report that they are. We've got a relationship with the Department of Health where together we're testing all of our lakes and many of the swimming pools on our rivers to make sure that they're safe for swimmers. And you can go on our website, go to the ANR.gov website. You'll be able to see for yourself because we have those results up online for you to see if you've got any question at all. The lakes are safe and swimmable, and we encourage you to come out. Over these past couple months, we've had, so that's the good news. The bad news was that over the past couple months, we had rain events that overtapped some of our wastewater treatment infrastructure. And as a result, there were spills into the lake that while they have no effect at this moment, at the time were somewhat alarming. And I want to compliment our partners, the cities and towns who run and operate these treatment facilities for responding immediately and professionally to get their facilities back up and running. They did a tremendous job working tirelessly for long hours without sleep in order to make sure that we've got some of the problems under control. And that's one of the reasons why right now we're in such great shape. Going forward, the agency is going to be working with our municipal partners to assess the infrastructure to make sure that we're ready for the next rain and flood event. There's been a lot of questions that have come to my desk about whether or not what we saw this spring is, a 500-year flood occurrence, or if it's the new normal. And I would say that it would be irresponsible for us not to plan ahead and not to plan for greater rainfall and greater flooding into the future. And so, working with the governor, we're going to be looking at what we could be doing to create more resilience in our communities and in our infrastructure. Meanwhile, the good news is our lakes are open for business, our parks are open for business, and it's a gorgeous day, the first day of official summer, and I encourage all Vermonters to get out there and enjoy the Vermont run.
And Commissioner of Fish and Wildlife Pat Berry has been out weighing fish all weekend, as well as doing some fishing recently, so he has some personal news to report.
So, which is true. Actually, I've managed to get out on the lake fishing a few times in the last couple of weeks on the southern end of the lake and the northern end of the lake, and I spent pretty much all weekend long working one of the weigh stations at the Lake Champlain International Derby. And I'm here to report that if you are not fishing or recreating in the lake right now, you're missing some great opportunities. We had a fantastic derby this past weekend. Every one of our access areas was open with the exception of the sandbar, which should be open soon. We work cooperatively with the Marina Association to keep a running list of marinas and access areas that were available for folks to use. We had volunteers that help us clean up the access areas. And we've been getting great reports, aside from my own fortune of getting out on the water. We've been getting great reports about the fishing out there for any kind of species you can possibly imagine. It's been great right now, and I know some records were set in the Derby this past weekend. The great thing about the Derby, too, is that it's an opportunity for any kind of fisherman in any kind of boat to get out on the water. And we actually had a lot of folks fishing from shore as well, and they all had equal success. And what I like about that is it's really a testament that this lake and the recreational opportunities we have is really something that every Vermonter of all walks of life who finds some way to connect with the water can enjoy. And I think we've seen that this past weekend. We certainly have some work cut out for us to repair some of the access areas that we have. But we've got great partners within state government and certainly within the communities and the towns within which we have our access areas. And I think we're getting to a place pretty soon here where we'll be back to business as usual. You know, the one thing that I learned throughout the problems that we've had over the last couple months with water is the resilience of Vermonters. For those folks who really just had to get out there on the lake and get in some fishing or canoeing, they found a way to get out there, and they found that the opportunities were great. And as I toured the northern part of the lake and I met with folks at different businesses and marinas, the sense that I got was that they were all in it together. They realized that their neighbors may have been struggling, and they did everything they could to reach out and help them. And what that told me is that our greater Lake Champlain economy is really as much of a greater Lake Champlain community, and that was really heartening. So a lot of times when you have these kinds of struggles, there's a silver lining, and I think the silver lining is that people realize that we would bounce back, that we'd be open for business, and it proved that everybody was able to work together to get through what were tougher times. And again, right now, if you like to fish, it is the time to hit the water.
So obviously the residential, commercial, and municipal impacts of this spring and early season were significant. The good news is that these businesses can get this back if everybody comes out and does their part to have some fun and buy from them and keep them going. That's the single biggest thing that businesses need, whether they're been affected by the lake flooding or they're in downtown Montpelier or Barrie. They need customers and they need cash flow. So you make your choices about what to do, where to go, who to spend your money in, try and get out there and see them. I think there's a couple of things that were really extraordinary that I'd like to point out. The governor decided he'd like to pull off a short-term loan program because the FEMA declaration was taking a while. From the time that call was made to when VITA, the E-Board met and VITA had a program up and running, was just about 2 weeks. From idea to checks in people's hands. That's just absolutely extraordinary. Joe Bradley and her team deserve an incredible amount of credit for getting something useful, streamlined, up and running quickly. We got the disaster declarations, Washington County followed, so the FEMA grants are available, the SBA loans are available. We're working with those partners to help businesses get the resources they need to recover as quickly as possible. It's also true that there's just been some extraordinary personal fundraising support for some of these individual businesses that didn't have insurance. And when you see fundraising almost in a community, well, exactly in a community way, fundraising for for-profit businesses to get their doors open again, that's when you know you've got a group of people that really come together extraordinarily well. So this is on its way out, and we're really glad to have the lake open, and we're going to have a great summer. So thank you all for coming out and communicating that with people.
Mark, do you have any sense about how much lost business has taken place to this point?
We don't. You know, we're going to be looking at that later. It takes a while for that data to come in terms of tax collections. They lag with quarterly deposits, and we are going to try and estimate that. There's some confounding things. In one of these events, there's a lot of people who lose out. There's also a lot of contractors and laborers who were busy who would not otherwise have been. So it's very hard to know what the direct results were. Certainly the direct results for a great many people were particularly personally painful for themselves and their businesses, but it did affect a relatively small portion of Vermont. So
the governor said he didn't know exactly how many businesses would take advantage of the new loan program. Up to this point, do you know how many have taken advantage?
As far as I knew a few days ago, Joe was saying they had something approaching 30 applications within the first few days. So it got a very strong immediate response.
Does that surprise you? I spoke to Joe this morning, and I guess the number is up to 40, and 16 businesses have actually been approved.
Been funded, yeah.
And then in terms of the SBA loans, no one has applied as of Thursday. Does that come as a surprise that it's not?
No, I think people have to remember that the VITA loan is extremely streamlined. So it took a few minutes to fill out. The people who are affected, they're still, doing the physical work of getting their basements cleaned out, doing the physical work of getting access to their buildings. They're dealing with their customers. The SBA loan process, together with their bank, figuring out the best financing package for their longer term results, that'll take a little while. The grant application process as well for the FEMA grants. That's one of the main reasons we wanted the rapid response money out there to plug the immediate need.
It's kind of a broad question, and I know it's so hard to quantify what all this damage would cost at this point in time. How long do you think it could take before there is a number or some sort of realization of what the last 3 months cost the state?
Well, we're still just below 100 feet, so we've got a whole lot of lake to go before we're able to see what all of the damage has been. I think it'll be months before anybody can give a reasonably accurate response.
In terms of the FEMA money, the state matches 25% of that. Where are those funds going to come from?
Well, it's interesting. There's a state, local portion. The exact division may vary depending on municipality. I think the legislature is going to be faced with some difficult decisions about what to fund and what they can't fund. I think we're very fortunate that revenues are running ahead of anticipation. Obviously that money was very important to help buffer the additional cutbacks that needed to be made next year. But when you're faced with a disaster like this, you have to do what you have to do.
And so with that example, if a home is destroyed in Cabot or has the damage there, is it Cabot municipal funds paying for that 25% or state kicking in as well?
I don't know the answer to that. I'm not sure it's been decided yet.
And as time goes on, do you expect more businesses will jump on these loan programs?
Yeah, I think anybody coming out of an event like this wants to do it with as little debt as they possibly can. The effect on cash flow is meaningful. The quicker they can get their customers back, the more confidence they can feel about going into business, back into business, or borrowing for the appropriate level of business activity. Some folks will probably manage with lower inventories for a while and build those back up. We're not encouraging people to take on debt that they don't need. We just want to make sure that it's available if they do need it.
And do we have a sense, I don't know if someone might have already asked this, of how many businesses are actually eligible?
No. Different programs have different impacts. Great. Anybody have questions for these folks? Thanks a lot.
Thank you, guys.